For decades, we've been sold this really powerful story about globalization. The idea was that if we connect all the world's economies, it would create a rising tide that lifts all boats. A simple, beautiful promise of shared prosperity, a win-win for literally everyone. But what if that simple story isn't the whole story? What if the reality is a lot more complicated, maybe even a little contradictory?
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures that classic, optimistic view of free trade. For centuries, this has been the bedrock of mainstream economics, the idea that it benefits every single country involved. And this one idea, more than almost any other, built our modern global economy. The belief was simple: remove the barriers, and we'll all get richer, and hey, maybe even more peaceful.
So first, let's just quickly unpack that foundational promise. The simple, orthodox story of how this whole thing was supposed to work. The idea is actually pretty straightforward. When you get rid of trade barriers, countries can just specialize in what they do best. And that efficiency, well, it's supposed to boost production, grow the whole pie, and make everyone better off in the end. It's a really elegant theory, and it's one that has been driving global policy for generations. Okay, but now let's start to complicate that nice, neat picture. What happens if we look at all this economic integration not through the lens of different countries, but through the lens of different regions? This is where things start to get really, really interesting. Here it is. This is the big, powerful reframing of the whole question. Instead of thinking about, say, France and Germany, what if we think about California and Mississippi? Inside a single country, goods, money, and people can flow freely, right? But does that automatically guarantee that all the regions are going to be equally prosperous? Well, the evidence suggests not so much. And this data from Mexico back in 1990 just makes the problem crystal clear. Just look at the difference between the capital, Mexico City, and the southern state of Chiapas. GDP per person is more than 3 times higher in the city. And get this, healthcare? Mexico City has over 6 times more doctors per person. This is all within the same country with no trade barriers. So that integration alone, it clearly wasn't lifting all the boats equally. Not even close. So what is going on here? What's the mechanism? Well, it's a concept called circular causation. The basic idea is that success breeds more success. Economic activity, it just tends to cluster in areas that are already doing well. It's like a magnet pulling in capital, talent, and resources. And that in turn drains those exact same resources from the less developed regions, making the rich places richer and the poor places poorer. The market, if you just leave it alone, can actually make the gap wider. All right, now let's take this a whole step further. What happens when we look beyond just the trade of goods and services, and we focus on an even more powerful force: financial globalization? We're talking about the free flow of money, of capital, across borders. So, think of a country's financial system like its economic plumbing. It's kind of the hidden infrastructure, and when it's working well, it's doing these 5 crucial jobs. Everything from funding new ideas to protecting people's savings, all to keep the entire economy healthy and growing. Now, the big argument for financial globalization was that opening up to all that global capital, well, it should be like a massive system-wide upgrade for your plumbing. The idea was that the rush of foreign competition and best practices would improve how well the system does all 5 of these critical jobs, making the whole economy way more efficient. But, and this is a huge but, when we actually look at the real-world evidence, that promise upgrade turns out to be a very, very mixed bag. The promise was improvement across the board. The reality? Yeah, some areas like corporate governance, they got better. But others actually got worse. In some cases, global capital led to less competition and poorer risk sharing. That simple system upgrade was anything but simple. This clash in the evidence, it really highlights a critical distinction we absolutely have to make. It's a distinction that sits right at the heart of this entire debate, and it's the difference between financial growth and financial development. So here's the crucial question. Are we making the financial system bigger, or are we making it better? They are not the same thing. See, growth is all about size, more credit, bigger markets, more money flowing in. But development is about quality. It's about better competition, fairer access to capital for new businesses, stronger institutions, and smarter risk management. And the scary part is, globalization can easily fuel growth without delivering any real development. So at the end of the day, who really wins from all this? The evidence is pretty clear that the benefits are not universal at all. Developed nations, the ones that already have strong, stable rules in place, they tend to do pretty well. But for developing nations, the results are all over the place, and sometimes even harmful. And here's the real key takeaway. Success depends almost entirely on having strong domestic institutions before you open the floodgates to global capital. Okay, so let's try and bring all of this together. We've gone through the promise, the problems, and the plumbing. And that brings us right back to our central question. Is this incredibly powerful global force a rising tide that lifts all boats? Or is it a much riskier bet with really uneven and sometimes even damaging consequences? Okay, so what have we learned? I think the biggest takeaway is that the simple win-win story of globalization is, well, it's a myth. Its effects are complex and super conditional. It can create that financial growth without true financial development. And ultimately, one-size-fits-all policies just don't work because success really hinges on the strength of a nation's own institutions.
And that leaves us with the ultimate challenge, doesn't it? If the automatic benefits of globalization are a myth, then the real work isn't just about opening borders anymore. It's about actively managing these incredibly powerful forces to build a global economy that isn't just bigger, but is actually better and fairer for everyone.